Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our today's webinar, Chatbots. I'm happy you will hopefully stay with us for the next 45 minutes to examine the topic of chatbots, human artificial intelligence, machine learning, and a lot more even deeper. Just to introduce myself shortly in the beginning so that you know who is actually talking to you. My name is Alina Köhler. I've been responsible at USECON as a sales, marketing, and business development manager. And I'm also honored to present the final webinar of this year's webinar series, Alina's Guests. I'm happy to welcome Floor today to talk about chatbots. Floor, thanks for being here.
So my name is Floor Drees. I'm the Managing Director of Sector 5 Co-working Spaces in Vienna and our accelerator program, which is called 5 Starts.
We'll go back to Floor in like 2 minutes to find out even more about what she actually does and what the Sector 5 is about and what is actually about chatbots in this relation. I just want, for the persons whose first webinar of this webinar series is it today, a little background information what we actually do. In the webinar series, actually, we are investigating current hot topics from innovation, from research, from technology, and we aim with the respected experts for examining use cases, theoretical knowledge, experiences from the expert, from the practice, and so on. Today, together, we will either help you newly addressing the topic of chatbots, or if you have some pre-experience, we will hopefully gather some extended knowledge to you through use cases and especially through Floor's personal experience with chatbots. The greatest part of our live stream is, of course, that you have the possibility to ask questions anytime. So when you didn't understand something, when you have an additional question which we haven't answered in this 45 minutes presentation, please don't hesitate to use the commentary function below your stream, type into that question, and we will be honored, or Floor will be honored to answer all of your questions after we have ended the presentation. So just keep going with the questions. And as I announced before, I would love Floor to tell a little bit more about what she's doing about Sector 5.
Sure.
Who you are.
Sector 5 as a co-working space has been around since 2010, so we are almost celebrating our 7th anniversary, and have as such always hosted and supported early stage startups, some of which grew quite a bit bigger. Among them are My Sugar, Indoors, CodeShip, and Blossom. You have talked to Indoors a little while ago about the indoor navigation technology that they have. Yeah, absolutely. There you go. And Sector 5 as such has also hosted the accelerator program since the very beginning of 2016. We have accelerated over 12 startups, mainly in the tech software area, and with a special focus on AI and chatbots.
Thank you. As you can see, Floor is very experienced with the subject of AI and chatbots, so we have invited the perfect person for doing this today. First of all, as I think that we have laymen in the audience, especially as well as people who have also pre-experience, we just want to bring everybody on the same level and do some terminology, some theoretical baits, clarification of some buzzwords, and I think we will just directly start. We've done a little quiz here for Floor.
Quizzing! Bring it on.
First one. So, first one, of course, AI, artificial intelligence.
Yeah,
what is it about?
Artificial intelligence is the ability of a machine to mimic or imitate human intelligent behavior.
Perfect. Good answer.
Yeah, thank you. Do I get a sticker?
Like you've prepared for this.
Not at all. I never talk about these things. I have no idea.
The next one is conversational interface.
Yeah, so in every interface that sort of implements some sort of conversational context in order to complete a task.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. So chatbots might be like a subtopic, some general relating to both of them.
Sure. So chatbots is usually a very good example of ANI, which is artificial narrow intelligence. Means that the intelligence is limited and very focused on a specific task or a task set. And a chatbot is of course like a system that takes place in a conversational interface, where there's a conversation where an intelligent agent or like a digital agent will interact with a human user.
Okay. Yeah, this is also our next buzzword, digital
Exactly.
agent,
Yeah.
assistant. How is it related to chatbots? Like, what is the main difference between both?
I think it's not necessarily a difference. So like every chatbot is a digital assistant in a way, but not every digital assistant is a chatbot. It could also be a voice assistant or anything like that. So terms like bot or digital assistant or digital agent are used interchangeably, and that's okay, I guess.
Okay, good. Then we have the expression machine learning. I think many people might have heard of this as well.
Yeah. So this is the ability of a machine to learn and improve on user interactions without being explicitly programmed to do certain tasks or give certain answers.
Yeah. I always find it even better understandable the other way around when you say learning machine. I think this place is very good what it actually does.
Absolutely. And for instance, not all chatbots implement machine learning. It can also be a very strict rule-based conversation where people can only interact with the chatbot via buttons, as it's called. So you can only say yes or no, and not necessarily engage in a more elaborate conversation. So not all of them implement machine learning. Interesting ones do.
So when you say something is intelligent or a machine is intelligent, it doesn't imply that it has to be have machine learning abilities. So intelligent is not self-improving.
Doesn't need to be. Yeah.
Okay. So. Then we have natural language processing, NLP.
Yeah, so it's the analysis and the synthesis of like human conversation, human language and human speech. Yeah.
So the translation between human speech, machine speech,
exactly,
or other
like
speeches.
How they interact with each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Jeopardy.
I
I just pronounce it for you, brother.
Thank you.
So I think this metaphor is used across the web to describe the grouping of questions and connecting them to the answers and workflows that should follow. Especially so you can have one answer to a multitude of questions.
Mm-hmm.
Human communication is quite messy, and so we tend to say things in a different way than a machine would like predict you to say something. You don't say I cannot pay my bill because no one really says this feels embarrassed about it, but you would say I'm a little short on cash, or the invoice comes too early this month, or something like this, which basically will relate to the same answer and the same workflow in the end, but it's just not how humans communicate.
Yeah, and you have a really good case on this later on, right?
Yeah.
To even explain it more extended. After the buzzword clarification, I mean, we've already heard of chatbots, which focuses on texting. Now you brought us a voice assistant ecosystem. We all know Siri, we all know Alexa and stuff like that. We know the advantages, we know it's good working, but what are the limitations here? What are the issues that are still need to be clarified?
Yeah, just also to touch on the voice, because it is also definitely a use case of digital assistants, but it's not necessarily a typing based one. And for sure, like some of the limitations are that voice bots or voice assistants are very limited to the languages and the dialects it can serve. Mm-hmm. Sometimes this is also very related to the development teams behind such a product. So if they grew up in New York, they're much likely to understand and work with a New York accent and not so much with a Texan accent. So you see this a lot, and of course, like these data sets needs to be created so that every type of dialect is understood and triggers the right workflows. And then what I think is actually a more pressing issue, and it's definitely something that we'll touch on later as well, is that many of these bots adopt a female name and even a female sounding voice, if you will, as its default voice, which is kind of weird and raises the question if we like our servants to be women.
Yeah.
So I think this is a severe topic, and we need to address this before this becomes a real issue.
Yeah.
And of course, there's also the issue that voice bots are a bit more prone to miscommunication than text is. my child could say something to a voice assistant, and the voice assistant interprets it wrongly and might even display non-suitable for work or non-suitable for kids in this case content, because there's no second time authentication.
Yeah. What I underestimated the most was like the languages and dialect thing, that you always have to take into account how huge database behind has to be.
Yeah,
that it really works properly.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. After the voice assistant, we have, of course, the chatbots more in detail, also called conversational interfaces.
Yeah.
What is it about?
So I think like a lot of us might have already interacted with a chatbot in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
It's implemented in quite a few apps. It's hardly ever really a standalone type of application. Maybe you have already dealt with it without you necessarily knowing it when you were dealing with a help desk solution. And I just wanted to point out that, of course, like here, also the ecosystem is very young still, so there's also stuff that's still missing, and that's why it's also such an interesting case to take a look at, because there's so much work still to be done. And one of them is definitely that the distribution platforms are very much tied to the platforms that actually offer the bot technology or your bot to be implemented in an app like Facebook Messenger, and that the tooling is very much behind. So there's very little someone can measure or improve upon, because you just don't have the numbers of user interactions that you can work with, only when they start interacting with your bot, nothing before. So you don't know why people might refrain from using your bot, because you simply have no data. And of course that the adoption, but I think you see this with most new technology, is limited to like millennials, say 25, 45, people between those ages.
So it's still massively evolving, especially with the
Absolutely.
data behind. And what I learned today, maybe, I mean, you're here for the content thing, but I'm here because I of course try to figure out how you can categorize everything. What helped me a lot was when I was thinking about the relation between chatbots and conversational interfaces. It's like a poodle dog metaphor I've learned years ago, and it's easy to say that a chatbot is always a conversational interface, but not every conversational interface is a chatbot. I don't know if this helps anyone but me, but it helped me a lot in understanding how those sometimes similar expressions relate to each other.
Sure.
So after we skipped through the theoretical part, I think we're now ready for the use cases. We're all on the same level when it comes to terminology and theoretical basics. And as far we heard innovative things about chatbots, etc. by now, and how great they work. And of course, the question has been asked many times, which is, can computers actually do better? Because we have heard of so many advantages and about like the really fast evolvement over the last years and also of the next years. So what do you think? Can computers do better? Will computers replace humankind
and send us off to another planet? Well, we laugh about it, but actually, like it's been a huge shitstorm, if you will, between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, actually, who blame each other for either not caring enough or not knowing enough. So it's actually quite a topic. I do think that computers can do better in a lot of cases, especially when it's repetitive tasks or tasks that are beyond someone's core compatibility, but are just tasks that need to be done, like reporting, scheduling, bookkeeping, like all of these type of tasks, administration. So I think use cases for artificial intelligence are definitely there to surface maybe important contextual information. If you need to get to answers quite quickly in sort of a conversation, that's always easier than having people fill out fields. And especially if you guide them through these type of questions, or to help complete a user action, and in many cases in larger corporations and firms also to help either augment or like replace first levels of support. Interesting cases, of course, is whenever It's about physically thankless jobs like garbage collection, maybe even dangerous work that could be handled better by machines. And an interesting use case that I saw is for instance, the end-of-life bot Emily that helps people that are ill to prepare their important life documents for when their life might end. So this is everything from a will to I want to donate my organs, what do I do and which one, where do I report this, to really help them through these type of processes where maybe medical staff might be overworked and simply not have the time to do this.
And in general, it's not a new thing that some human tasks have been replaced by machines. So we're just historically like doubling again. So it has been happening before. We're just on another level right now.
Absolutely. So it's the industrial revolution all over again.
2.0.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, something like this, if you will.
You've brought us a use case from Wiener Wohnen.
Yeah, so I went to this City AI event a couple of months back, which sort of explores the whole artificial intelligence ecosystem without focusing too much on the technology, but more thinking about like how to design conversations and how to think about implementing data and data sets. So it's a little more theoretical than it is tech savvy or anything like that. So it was a super interesting event, and one of the presentations was by Roland from Deep Search, who did a project with Wiener Wohnen, so community housing, where they figured out what questions could be served by what answers and what workflows. So for instance, if there is fire in the building and it's been reported, we need to figure out, is there really a fire in the building? There needs to go an ambulance, a fire truck needs to go to this place. Maybe elevators need to be shut down. Like I don't know what the workflows are, but there are of course a couple of things that need to be set in motion. And for artificial intelligence to assist agents in these processes.
Yeah, a very good example of how bot and human can work together perfectly.
Absolutely, because what Roland also mentioned, and I hope I don't quote him wrong, but that usually the Wiener Wohnen call agents need to be trained for about 2 years for them to really have extensive knowledge of the data set and the workflows that are connected to this. And now they can, of course, like bring this down by so much because the data set also already knows the answers and that belong to the questions, and can also learn from if this was the answer that's been selected the most, this is the most probable answer to these type of questions. It also learns from the different ways that people frame a question in. So it's a super interesting use case to think about, which will save Wiener Wohnen a lot of money on training personnel. Absolutely, especially when you think about churn rates in call centers, which is really high.
Yeah.
So you would have a lot of knowledge just walking out of the door, and in this case, it will always stay there.
Sure. When you see sometimes the red boxes on the slides, Floor was so nice and put several use cases or other interesting links in there. And of course, we will set a presentation on SlideShare after the live stream. So you're invited to like read through all of them, spend hours and days and weeks of reading through all of the topic of
reading
AI.
Through them and then clicking all the links in there. And
never stop.
Indulge like in the absolutely what I do. Yeah. No, this is a cool one. Like there is quite a few open data sets that you can, if you want to like try and fire up a little bot of yourself to like play around with these data sets and to make really narrow use cases. But in this case, it's kind of cool. Like Google asked users to just send in their drawings of a certain word, like cat or table or chair or whatever, and they collected this and sort of like grouped it by country that it came from. And it's just very interesting to see the difference between the countries. Like a cat from North Korea looks very different from a cat.
Absolutely.
And where chairs are in some countries like looks like from the side and sometimes from the front. So how would you draw a table?
I would draw it in 3D, I think. Like, I don't know. Okay, this is
a little bit of a perspective.
like this.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I would really do it like this. Like,
yeah, and it's
either that's very 2D or lazy or like.
And it's not just between countries. It's so subjectively, like also within a country, everybody even slightly has some differences in how a person has a picture in their mind.
Yeah, I think for the Netherlands, it's just like we grew up with Dick Bruna, and so everything is very like straight and like no nonsense. So maybe I don't know, like it could be this is an explanation.
That's true. Good. We have another use case from you. Maybe some people might heard about Gosset because it's pretty prominent for my feeling, and you will take us here more in detail. I'm wondering what Gosset does actually do and how using Gosset does create advantages not only for the users but also for the company and for the whole finance banking sector.
Sure. Okay, so anyway, I think in the finance and banking industry, you see quite a bit of usage of these type of chatbots or conversational interfaces, from handling customer requests to or help desk type of questions to even like taking out the credit. I think the Gosset, the partial payment bot, is just very interesting because it doesn't necessarily have a bank as an initiator behind it, such as that Erste Bank is, for instance, working on a chatbot, but it's really like there is a bank in the background, but it's more of a consumer-driven project where it's really like you as a millennial, you're in this certain time frame of your life where you're making a lot of important life decisions, which also includes like moving in or moving out, or there's children coming, or anything like this. Like, and these are usually also very costly decisions, and not everybody has the budget to buy a new couch or a cot or Wickeltisch or all of these type of things just offhand. So it's really the installment payment, but then in the digital age. So where it usually would take a long time for you to take out a credit or a loan with a bank, or pay an installment with MediaMarkt, where they have Santander behind it, for instance. It takes days up to weeks before you can actually purchase such a product. And with Gosset, they have a risk check enabled, which actually allows you to check out a product in mere minutes, and you will have it delivered as you're used to from your online shop, same Amazon. And
it's also just a nicer way of doing the things you have actually to do anyway. Like for me, it doesn't feel like you have to do all the stuff by yourself, or you have to deal with the stuff yourself, but you have like a partner you're communicating with, and this would give myself a better experience, I think, because it's just more fluent.
Yeah, it's
both way.
Absolutely. Like even if it's a financial product, which is usually not the most exciting product out there, and is very much like input based. Here it's more like a conversational flow. Yeah. So it's a very interesting use case for such an intelligent system, rather than going for the regular checkout system.
That's true. That's true. Well, perfect last sentences for next chapter, my favorite chapter, a glance into the future, because we've heard a lot about what advantages everything brings within and how fast everything has been evolving since the last years. But it's also interesting to think about, will AI or chatbots or whatever we have already been learning today, will it be a trend that will last for another couple of years, or will it be something that will stay and that we have to like implement, or that will be implemented in our daily lives?
Yeah, so I think AI will become a really big part of any type of system, any type of company, and that's a good thing. It's not a trend. It is a thing that it is maybe a trend, but it's also something that will stay. So it's a bit of both, I guess. Yeah. And it's quite interesting to see how it will interfere in our daily lives. So I think it will take over a lot of repetitive tasks from professional workers. It enables. It will augment a lot of those tasks that are repetitive and tedious, and so of course it will have a real implication that people will be freed of these type of tasks and could focus on their core competency. But this also means that everyone whose core whose core task is to do these type of repetitive tasks, like scheduling, like bookkeeping, like reporting, that these jobs will very likely be replaced. But on the other hand, it will also enable a lot of new jobs, because the whole chatbot and AI revolution is not only technology driven, it's very much I mean, it is already in the definition, right? It's mimicking human behavior. So it needs to learn how to mimic this or to behave like a human in the first place, or to learn like a human, or to predict what kind of questions can come after a certain process is ended, or questions that could come, workflows that could follow, features that could follow. So there's a there's heaps of jobs that are available in this space, like how to design a conversation, how to design workflows, and how to mimic this behavior. And I put an example of Anna in there, who we actually invited to like a panel discussion later on. But you will tell me, but you will say something about. But like I think it's very interesting. So she's a cognitive science student, and she also studies philosophy. It's not necessarily a person that will go into a technology field historically or traditionally. But she is like knee deep in analyzing and designing the conversations for the Gosset chatbot. So definitely those type of jobs are created as well.
Yeah. I think it's a very nice perspective that you feel like you can come from anywhere and still work in like the hot topics of technology. Because me personally, I feel like, okay, I've been studying business. I can't do this. I can't like be part of that. But you can, like from different perspectives. And I think for my feeling, people always tend to forget that.
Yeah, sure. You will see all kinds of interesting business use cases that could be implemented. So for sure, it's a double-edged sword in a way. Like for sure, there will be some jobs lost, but there will be also new jobs implemented, and it's up to us, the humans, to sort of adapt to the new situation as it is.
Absolutely, but we still have to look at from a technology point of view, how everything will further evolve in the future. What do you think?
Sure, because it's still like it's quite a young topic still, and even if we had a ton of science fiction movies about AI, we're not that far yet in most cases.
Not yet.
And so not yet. Teaser music.
Stay tuned.
But so there's quite some stuff that still needs to develop in order for it to really like flourish, if you will. And definitely one of those things might be that bots are interoperable between certain messaging platforms. So if I start a process in Facebook Messenger, and then I switch to WhatsApp because my mom sent me a message, I might want to complete the process that I've already started in Messenger also in WhatsApp. Yeah. And this might be interesting. And then also comes the discussion like, how will that look like? I mean, Messenger is a different context than WhatsApp is. And so those processes will need to be the same and synced somehow, but also act maybe a little bit different depending on the context, or not. Like this is a discussion that you can have.
But still, they kind of will have to commit to each other in what kind ever.
It might very well be. You see this happening a little bit already, and this might be a really interesting topic to talk about in this regard. As of course, there's very few languages served right now, or served halfway decently. So of course, like the whole multilingual offering, and this includes dialects. So for sure, Austrian German is different than German.
It is.
Can you even say German?
It is.
So there's a few different words. There's different expressions. Maybe the type of humor is different. So this all needs to be taken into account. As well as maybe the approach of people towards certain products is very different from country to country. So this needs to also be taken into account. Then, of course, like machine learning and natural language processing needs to be developed a lot further, and not by individuals, but maybe in a collective type of situation where we can learn from each other, where there's use cases, more use cases, and like really the knee deep. I digged into the conversations with 2,000 users, and this is what came out of it. Type of use cases. That's going to be the interesting part. And of course, which ties into a little bit of the different approach to products and the different type of humor, is of course finding the right voices for your bot. Should it be a little bit more human? Should it make fun of itself being a bot? Does it use humor at all or not? Like, is it a little bit witty, or is it more serious? Is it a little bit sarcastic? Or like these are things that need to be found out. And we just need more case studies and more use cases for it to really see this coming. in the links, there's also quite interesting discussions about how human chatbots should sound or behave, and what's until now what seems to be the common knowledge is that bots should never try to really be like a human or like convince the human on the other side that they are also a human, but that we as humans are way more appreciative of a bot that actually makes mistakes, by the way. We find this very charming in a way. It's a Salzburg research actually, but also that we know that it's just a machine, and that if they don't know the answer, that we're okay with this, and we're not getting angry or cross with it.
Okay. After we talked about economy and after we talked about technology, is also very important to talk about society, about ethics, and about ethnics, especially.
Absolutely. So I find this a very, very important topic, and there needs to be way more discussion on this topic as well. Is that we know that technology, like women and minorities in technology, are very underrepresented. But in an area like artificial intelligence, which will have such an impact on all of our lives, more than ever, we need more women and minorities on the table. This means in the teams, in user panels, in everything that affects what's going out there as products and services. We've already seen that historically or traditionally people that have been developing these type of systems are white men who are developing for white men, just because they don't have the position of a woman interacting with these type of technology. And this simply cannot be. It's unacceptable.
Yeah, they won't just see so many things, like not on purpose, but they just don't see it because they have a complete different context than other persons might have.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a problem.
So they need to be included in the conversation, but rather be included at the executive table as well.
Yeah, exactly. So the ecosystem to make sure to give it a more integral view.
Yes, sure. So I think we talked about it before. You asked if it's a trend or if it will magically go away again.
Disappear.
What a lot of venture capitalists say, like what investors see when they're in their daily field and when they're investing in companies, is that AI alone won't make for a venture case anymore pretty soon. Sure, exceptions aside, but that every software and tech company will in one way or another be AI enabled. But as said, I think there's a long way to go until we're there. I think this has been said about software as a service and in the cloud before, and it's not the same as artificial intelligence. We don't have the proper tooling for it. We cannot do measuring, as I touched on before already. There's definitely not enough case studies that are really going knee deep into what it means designing conversations for humans. Definitely there needs to be more distribution channels beyond what is already there, which is the different messaging platforms, maybe Product Hunt, probably bot list, and a couple of newsletters. It's just too little to really get to a critical mass in this.
So it's pretty much a time issue here.
Sure, as everything is. Yeah.
Good. We have one last point in our glance into the future. Introduction of regulation and code of conduct, with kind how refers to what we talked before with women and...
A bit, yeah. So, of course, like it's a new technology, so we don't really know how to deal with it yet and what the written and unwritten rules are. Is it, for instance, polite or okay to walk into someone else's home and talk to their virtual assistants? Or is that a very, very strange thing to do? Is that like touching someone else's child in the subway? Yeah. Which, by the way, a lot of people do. But I mean, like you share a lot of personal stuff with your virtual assistant, be it only about your music taste, and maybe there's some guilty pleasures in your music taste that you don't want everyone to know. By me talking to your Alexa, I could figure this out. Now this is like a really innocent like case, but of course this is a real privacy issue, and this might be very interesting to have a good discussion about. And also, like what happened frequently, or like recently, sorry, is that there was a study where they would sexually harass or like address a couple of different voice bots, and see what their and like report on their responses. And most bots, especially Siri, actually responded in like a sort of like a laughing it off whenever there was something explicit asked or said that they were pretty or sexy or even like more aggressive type of conversations. So either they would be laughing it off or making a joke, or even Siri replied a little bit flirtatious on some of these messages. So this says, of course, something about the development team behind these bots, for sure, but it's definitely something that we need to be talking about, like how does artificial intelligence respond to inappropriate behavior? Could it maybe help avoid inappropriate behavior? And we have to talk about it now and not when it's already broken.
Yeah, you have to get control on it before it evolved too much.
Yeah.
Good. After we have heard a lot so far, we are actually already in the questions and answers sector. So, Floor's ready. So, I will read it out loud to you. Will there ever come a point where we have to think about how chatbots can be spoken to? As they're not human, people will not care about being impolite, rude, or watching the language. If most customer service contact points are replaced with chatbots, will people communication skills, e.g., being respectful and speaking in a polite manner, deteriorate? Effectively, will chatbots change the way we communicate with one another in the same way texting has changed the way we write? That's a long question, very interesting.
Yeah, but it's a really good question.
Yeah.
So I think in a way, Peter, have you ever been in a Bila waterschlange? Like people are impolite anyway, and definitely channels like Twitter, and especially with the president of the US, people don't watch their language anymore, even though language is of course like a really important subject. So people don't tend to say please or thank you anymore anyway. And maybe this is something that voice bots could actually enforce you to use. So for instance, if you address Alexa, you need to say Alexa first. Maybe Alexa will only perform a task when you say please. So it could actually be turned the other way around. But otherwise, yeah, of course, there's the notion of us becoming real bullies because we can just like command virtual assistants around. So it's a good question.
Another question is, if I buy something from a bot, is this a real business? Or when a bot is promising something to me, is it reliable? And what is actually if the bot is serving something which he's not allowed to serve?
Wow.
Are those real business, real contracts? Can you have a contract with a bot?
Sure. I mean, the bot in this case, or I guess that there might be some edge cases where, of course, it's like debatable if it's a real contract or like a binding contract, yes or no. But just to touch upon Gosset again, because it's a good use case in that case, for sure it is like any other checkout of an e-commerce. It's just done through an interface.
Yeah.
And so it's the same kind of contract. Same kind of risk check, same kind of anything that you would have with another installment payment provider. It's just done through a conversational interface.
Okay, but who's reliable for it? Maybe I missed it out, but who's reliable for a contract? Depends
on what goes wrong in what scenario. So, for instance, if someone orders something at Amazon, gets it delivered, doesn't like it, sends it back, there is a period of time until the first invoice of these installment payments. So there's time enough to send it back before the first payment is due. If you miss this, of course, this is rather on the consumer side to change this. But of course, like we're also learning. So you go through all of the use cases that a normal e-commerce shop will also go through, like how to deal with returns, how to deal with packages not arriving, how do you check if packages are not arriving.
Yeah.
Like of course these are all very new topics, and so it's an interesting time to be alive. Yeah.
Next question is, what has to be improved at a bot, and how will the market be developing?
So what I think we'll see in the near future the most is, I mean, you have a couple of those type of bot platforms already that help you build your bot for the different messaging platforms, for instance, or to better collect those group of questions, connect them to answers and workflows. So I think we'll see a lot of technology which can be implemented to really create a chatbot. I think we'll see that a lot right now. And this is very much needed. And especially what's needed is the whole measuring part of it. So there was a good link to an article which is called "Your Bot is Losing Users and It's Not Your Fault," which is a good article because it's definitely true that when you have, for instance, a bot on the Facebook Messenger platform, until a user actually clicks on the Get Started button on your personal tiny bot page on the bot platform and starts interacting with your bot, you have no way of knowing where they come from, how often they have maybe already visited this Get Started page, at what point they decided or how quickly they decided to get started with your app. You have absolutely no data whatsoever, and so you cannot really optimize for your conversion rates for your funnels like you would do for any web application with Google Analytics or any kind of tracking tool. So definitely this needs to happen. It's kind of funny that something that is way more could be way more of a stronger connection between a user and a machine or a system cannot actually learn from human behavior that happened before. Which for any other web application would be unthinkable. You wouldn't even think of this in these times.
Sure. Another question, which company branches will benefit the most from chatbots?
All of them. No,
which the most? Like when you have to relate it.
That's a good question. Like I think there's a lot of things that can be automated quite easily, which will speed up processes a lot, be it in e-commerce, which I find very interesting. Like there's quite a few interesting use cases there for finance. Whenever it replaces, like when it's a little bit more narrow and it only replaces the help desk of companies, it's also quite interesting. But definitely, we talked about it before when we talk about jobs that are very mentally maybe very stressful jobs. Where they could assist in the first levels of support, or maybe even like automating certain workflows there that would otherwise be maybe painful, stressful, physically heavy. That might be very interesting. Maybe not for chatbots, but the mentally heavy topics might be very interesting if that could augment societal workers or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. Which sources would you recommend to start creating our own chatbot?
So I think there is numerous tutorials online, and you could also definitely think about applying, if you're living in Vienna or like around, to apply for a Lemmings.io, which is sort of a program for developing bots and Twitter bots, Facebook bots, whatever bots. So that might be interesting. I would definitely start visiting some of the meetups that are taking place in Vienna, but in many other cities and countries. Vienna is just sort of like chatbot capital. To start there, to talk with people. I think it's a lot of talking and thinking about what you want to offer and how this sort of like flow chart thing looks like. Rather than really the technology alone, because this you can find and fire up in a weekend, but that's not the core case of a chatbot, I think.
This is pretty much exactly the last question as well, so they're very, very similar to each other. The last question is actually asking the same, but he or she is asking for concrete tools, how to build a chatbot.
Okay, so like to really build a chatbot, you can use any kind of technology. What I find more interesting is to look at the tools around it. Like Gosset wrote a blog post actually, which is interesting on their blog. I can link to this I think it's even linked in one of the slides where they talk about how they designed their conversations and how they did the whole grouping of the questions and connecting them to answers and workflows with API.ai. So that's a very interesting tool to really think about. I have this answer or like this solution and I need to find, or I need to connect it to all of the ways that a person could ask for this solution, plus all the typos that could be in all of those sentences and questions. So I think API.ai is, for instance, a really interesting tool to take a look at when you're really developing the conversations. I think the technology of the chatbot itself is slightly inferior to really thinking it through, how the conversation should go.
Another question is, how could chatbots help bank clerks in their daily work?
Well, so anything of like low-level support questions, they can usually already answer. Whenever you were educated or trained to be a bank clerk, you have a certain portfolio of, or database, if you will, of questions and answers. And so this could be automated in any way. Like this will probably take care of a lot of use cases because people tend to just go to the bank to ask anything or come with their list of questions. This could be taken, like this could be automated quite easily. And there's also some low-level financial products that could be taken care of. If someone already has an account with the bank, then some things might be automated a lot quicker. Like it could learn with your spending behavior or your income behavior, you could save so much per month. Here is this saving product that we can sell to you, and you can and maybe you want to think about setting aside some money, this amount of money every month. Yeah. So there's a couple of things that could be just be automated where otherwise bank clerks would have quite a bit of time sitting together with these people individually. Sure.
But it sounds like you can find potential nearly anywhere, and you can also find work anywhere where chatbots may not replace the actual tasks.
But augment.
Yeah, sure. Okay, let's check if we have, I think that's by now all of the questions.
Fair enough.
Therefore, I hope everything was answered properly, but I'm pretty sure about that.
Sure.
Let's go back to the presentation. Because, as we shortly mentioned before, we have a little surprise for you.
I sort of gave it away already, right?
Oh, Floor. No, you're fine. We have a little surprise for you.
Worst guest ever.
It's fine. So they stayed curious. It's good.
Exactly. Stay tuned.
No, Floor has a very cool Q&A panel organized at Sector 5. So anyone who's further interested in the topics of chatbots, artificial intelligence, and so on, is warmly invited to take part. It will take place on 4th of September in Vienna at the Sector 5 venue. And if you want to be there, just register for free. I think we don't have so many places left, so if you want to join, you should join now.
We already expanded even, so.
Yeah.
No. So it's going to be an interesting panel discussion, very much in practice, not so much the theory of the whole chatbot or the technology of the chatbot, but really thinking about how to design conversations for humans. The panelists come from a very different perspective. And have either created multiple chatbots with multiple personalities, or have been really knee deep into analyzing and designing conversations and figuring out what questions belong to each other and what possible typos people can make, which is a lot. And so I think this will be very much in practice, no nonsense, get into it type of panel. Yeah, and we will not be recording it, unfortunately, but I will write everything down and write a beautiful post about it on the Sector 5 Medium account.
But of course, being live is always better.
It's always better.
Today,
yeah.
It's always better. So, and Anna Berger will be part of it as well, right?
Yes, exactly.
And talk about Gosset, so don't miss it out. By now, I think we're at the pretty end of our webinar today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you could all learn something independent from which point of knowledge you started today. I'm actually pretty sure about that. I personally learned a lot. If you are not only interested in artificial intelligence and chatbots, but if you more interested also in other innovation-related or research-related topics, don't miss having a look at our former webinars about virtual and augmented reality and about indoor navigation experience. They're both on YouTube, so if you're curious, just have a look, check out what we have discussed the last times. And yeah, thank you so much, Floor, for coming.
Thank you.
We two will see each other again at our yearly customer event, which will take place on 8th and 9th of November, our Return and Experience Conference 2017, this year with the topic Different Approaches of Motivation. And I'm very happy that I convinced Floor to talk again about chatbots and artificial intelligence. And if somebody of you says, okay, this was great, I really want to hear her talking more about chatbots, just register online. The website is already out, so maybe we will see each other in November again. Thank you so much and have a great week. Bye-bye.